Japan is consistently ranked one of the top travel destinations on the planet. The food, the culture, the cherry blossoms, the vending machines that sell everything, including hot soup. And every single year, millions of tourists go home absolutely obsessed. But here's the thing nobody talks about. The people who actually move there, most of them eventually leave, and the ones who stay, they'll be the first to tell you. Japan as a vacation is a completely different country than Japan as a home. So today we're pulling back the curtain on why visiting Japan might just be the peak experience, and why living there is a whole different story. When you land in Japan as a tourist, something happens to your brain. It's hard to describe, but expats actually have a name for it, the Japan High. Everything feels like it was designed specifically to delight you. The trains run to the exact second, not the minute, the second. Convenience stores sell hot, fresh meals at midnight for $2. Strangers help you read a map before you even finish pulling your phone out. And the cities, whether it's the neon chaos of Tokyo's Shinjuku or the ancient stillness of Kyoto's temples, feel like you stepped inside a dream someone built just for you. As a tourist, you're experiencing what the Japanese call omotenashi, a philosophy of hospitality so deep that it's basically a national religion. Hotel staff bow when the elevator doors close, even though you can't see them anymore. Restaurant workers run outside to return an item a customer forgot. You feel genuinely like a welcomed guest. And then there's the food. Ramen that takes chefs 2 days to make. Sushi so fresh it practically moves. Wagyu beef that melts before you chew it. As a visitor, every single meal is an event. The cherry blossoms hit in spring, and the entire country turns pink. The fall foliage in autumn is just as breathtaking. And everywhere you look, there's something new. A tiny cat cafe tucked down an alley, a centuries-old shrine sitting between two skyscrapers, a vending machine selling full hot ramen in a can. When you're a tourist, Japan is a highlight reel. You see the best version of everything. And you go home thinking, I need to live here. Here's where it gets complicated. The moment you stop being a tourist and become a resident, the veil lifts, and what's underneath is a lot. As a tourist, the language barrier is charming. You point at a menu. The staff smiles and helps. There are English signs in all the tourist areas. It feels like a fun puzzle. As a resident, it becomes a wall. Everything runs in Japanese. Government paperwork, tax forms, medical appointments, your lease, your utility bills, your bank, your insurance. If you don't speak the language at a functional level, you will need someone to help you for every major life task, indefinitely. And Japanese is not a language you pick up casually. It has 3 separate writing systems, thousands of characters. Most foreigners who move to Japan with no prior language study describe the first year as exhausting in a way that has nothing to do with work. As a tourist, you stay in a hotel, a ryokan, or an Airbnb, clean, beautiful, sorted. As a resident, you need to rent an apartment, and that is where many foreigners get their first real introduction to the word gaijin, which literally means outsider. According to Japan's Ministry of Justice, nearly half of all foreign residents in Japan have experienced discrimination. The most common type? Housing. 19% of foreign residents report being turned away specifically when trying to rent a home. Some listings in Japan explicitly say, and this is a real thing that exists in 2025, pets okay, no foreigners. Foreigners have coined a term for the extra fees, tougher requirements, and closed doors they face. The gaijin tax. It's not a law. It's just the cost of being an outsider in a country that, legally speaking, still has almost no anti-discrimination protections for renters. Here's something tourists never experience, because it takes years to feel. No matter how long you live in Japan, no matter how well you learn the language, no matter how deeply you immerse yourself in the culture, you will almost certainly never stop being seen as a foreigner. Japan is one of the most ethnically homogeneous countries on the planet, about 97% Japanese. And while the country is warming up to outsiders out of necessity, the population is shrinking and they need workers. The cultural identity hasn't shifted that quickly. Expats describe being fluent in Japanese and still being spoken to in English by strangers who assume they can't understand, being left out of workplace social circles without anyone meaning to exclude them, being the only person in a room who looks different for years. Tourists never stay long enough to feel this. They leave while the honeymoon is still on. If you move to Japan to work, you're stepping into one of the most demanding work cultures on the planet. Japan has a word, karoshi. It means death from overwork, And it is not a metaphor. In 2024, recognized karoshi cases rose 18% to over 1,300 cases in a single year. About 1 in 10 Japanese workers log more than 80 hours of overtime per month. There's also the nomikai, mandatory after-work drinking events with your team. They're technically voluntary, but skipping them, especially as a new employee trying to fit in, is generally considered a bad career move. As a tourist, you go to an izakaya by choice, order cold beer and yakitori, and think it's the greatest night of your life. As an employee, you sit through a 3-hour nomikai on a Tuesday, wondering if you ever get to go home. Every long-term expat will tell you about the phases. First comes the honeymoon, usually the first 6 to 12 months. Japan can do no wrong. Every commute is an adventure. Every meal is the best meal of your life. Then comes the crash. The novelty fades. The routine sets in. The konbini that felt magical at 2 a.m. in week 1 is now just where you stop before work. And the loneliness starts to creep in. Japan is actually one of the loneliest countries in the world. So much so that it appointed a minister of loneliness in 2021. For foreigners, it's even more acute. Building real friendships in Japan takes time in a way that's genuinely different from the West. Japanese social circles tend to form early: school, neighborhood, workplace. And breaking into them as an adult outsider can take years. Most people who move to Japan end up leaving, not because Japan did anything wrong, but because the country you fell in love with as a visitor and the country you actually live in are two very different places. Japan is one of the greatest places on earth to visit, and it can be a deeply rewarding place to live for the right person with the right preparation and a lot of patience. But the people who love Japan most, they tend to be the ones who go back again and again as visitors, who get the highlights every time: the food, the temples, the cherry blossoms, the trains, and then they go home to their regularly sized apartments with their easily signed leases and their languages they already understand. Because sometimes the best love affairs are the ones where you don't move in together. Japan gives you everything as a guest. It just asks a lot more when you decide to stay. If you've ever dreamed of living in Japan, or if you've actually done it, drop it in the comments. I want to know, did the dream survive the move? And if you want more videos breaking down the reality behind the travel fantasies, subscribe, because we're just getting started.